Guys, welcome back to another video, and as you can tell from the title, this one I've gone and done about 700 miles in the Range Rover Sport L320. It's a 2007 and it's a lot more than I intended when I first got it. So the question is anything broken? The answer to that is no, not really, but it hasn't been smooth sailing, so that's what this video is about today. So let's get straight into what's happened so far. Now, I didn't intend to put so many miles on the car. It's not my main car, but I ended up just driving it so much because it's been so much fun for me that I've been looking for any reason to get in the car and drive it. So that's why the mileage is so high. I'm just on the way out now. Clearing out my storage unit. We've just moved home, as I mentioned in my previous video, so I'm just on the way out now. So I figure now's a good time for me to kind of talk about what's happened and how the car's been treating me so far. So let's get in the car and we'll talk about it. Alright guys, so just on the way out to the storage unit to pick up some stuff. Gave me an opportunity to show you one of my favourite things about this, which is the amount of trunk space in here when you put all the seats down. Now, I know some of the later models, they don't allow you, some of the later models don't allow you to put the seats all the way down, so you don't get as much room in the back here as you do in this L320 and in the larger L322 cars. So while they've become more luxurious with time, there's no doubt about it, they've also lost some of their utility functions. So yeah, that's one of the reasons why I personally like this shape and the shape of the L322. So let's talk about the issues I've had with the first 700 miles then. So first one is it's had an accident. I say an accident, it was very minor. So the village I live in, the area I live in, it's brand new and the roads are still being built. So there's a lot of diggers, trucks, you know, heavy machinery on the estate. So I was leaving one morning to go get some fuel, and what happened was there was a digger coming towards me on the other side of the road. It's very narrow. This is a big car, the digger's a big car. I think the driver was a young guy. He panicked as I went past, and I saw him swerve like away from me. His door obviously wasn't locked on the digger, so as he swerved, the door flung open, absolutely clattered the near side rear view mirror, which smashed it. I felt really sorry for him. He was really apologetic. He offered to pay for it there and then straight away, no qualms. He didn't, you know, most people would see one of these cars and be a bit hesitant with things like that because you never know how much things are going to cost. So I had a look, you know, he offered to pay. I had a look. My local car parts store is Euro Car Parts, and it was only the glass that was broken. The mechanism is completely fine, the electronics fine. It was literally just the glass that's broken. So it was £40. He transferred me the money. I ordered it there and then, and it was it was a like-for-like replacement. It was fitted the next day. Now, it wasn't easy to fit. There was a little bit of a knack to it, a little trick that you got to do to get these things on if you ever break one, but got there in the end, and problem sorted. So that was problem number one. An accident caused me to break the mirror. And the other issue was potentially a little more serious, the suspension. So the weather got colder, dropped to about 5 degrees Celsius and lower for the first time, and almost as soon as it did that, I noticed a few things. I noticed the car would struggle to turn on in the mornings, which, okay, I thought, okay, that's obviously perhaps the battery. And then I also noticed, almost immediately with the drop in temperature, I was getting a suspension fold come up on the dash which said normal height only, and it wouldn't allow me to raise or lower. So I was like, great. I know when I bought the car that the compressor was replaced. I looked at the paperwork, that was literally only last year. So I'm like, okay, even if it's not a genuine one, a year's a bit, it shouldn't. Hang on, camera's gone a little bit south. Sorry about that. So even if it's not a genuine compressor, a year's not really quite long enough really. So I thought it's unlikely to be that. I just couldn't figure it out until I remembered I had a Carly OBD II reader, which I wouldn't really recommend. I mean, they work fine. I've had no issues with how they work. There's an issue with how they clear codes. Often I find when you clear codes with it, it then brings up another code that kind of says, oh, there's an anomaly with the with that system. It doesn't say there's anything wrong, but it's almost like it doesn't clear it the way the manufacturer wants it cleared, and the car's computer is detecting that, like, oh, something strange has happened here, and it's just telling you. But it's not a problem. But the biggest thing why I wouldn't recommend the Carly is the subscription service. For one car, you've got to pay about £60 a year, and that's just for a year's access for one car. You can get all makes, and it's still a subscription though. You've got to pay every year that you want to use it. So, oh, and you got to buy the reader, which isn't cheap either. So I already had the reader, so I paid for a Land Rover service, plugged it in, pulled the codes, and there were some faults coming up. Now I'm driving, as you can see, so I'm going to overlay it on the screen. I can't remember the codes off the top of my head, but what I remember was there was codes saying that couldn't read. There was an issue communicating with the instrument cluster. There was a terrain module code, if I remember correctly, and there was obviously the ride level height code, which is what was coming up on my dash. And there was another one as well that, if I remember, that said there was an issue with the EGR, and that one made sense to me. The EGR valve, sorry, that made sense to me because the car felt a little sluggish. It felt a little, I know Range Rovers are a little sluggish off the mark from my research, but it felt, once I saw that code, it made sense, because like, oh, okay, that feels like the EGR valve is slightly sticky. So I decided, okay, the instrument cluster thing, I researched that, and it says that could be caused by two things, and that's either faulty wiring, which is big money, or a low voltage battery. Now I was like, I've just bought this car, it's been sat on a lot, that seems possible. So I decided, right, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to replace the battery, I'm going to take the EGR valve out and clean it, and while I am in the engine bay, I'm going to replace the air filter, and also while I'm doing that, I'm going to replace the pollen filter, which is inside the cabin. So that was my plan. I can't remember. Again, I went to my local car parts, which is Euro Car Parts. I ordered all the bits. I also found out that my plan was to remove the EGR valve and clean it. I found that there's a product out there that you could spray into the air intake, and it will clean the EGR and the turbo, etc. that way. And it was only about £8-10, which I thought, okay, let's try the cheaper method first, and if that doesn't work, then you obviously go up to the more expensive. So, and also it's going to be less time consuming. Getting to the EGR valve in these things, from my research, it's not easy. You got to take a lot of bits out. So I thought, let me try that first. So went out. I think for the battery and all the bits, cost me maybe about $150. I'm going to put the exact figures on the video. Cost me about $150. Fitted the battery, cleaned the EGR valve, and fitted the new air filter and the cabin filter. And I've got to say, as soon as I did that, connected everything back up. Obviously, once you disconnect the battery on one of these cars and you turn it back on, the dash looks like a Christmas tree. It detects that absolutely everything's broken. So you got to clear all the codes and then see what comes back up. Nothing came back up, surprisingly. The fault that was saying that it was picking up on the suspension was that the gallery wasn't inflating properly. By gallery, I think it means one of the airbags, the suspension air struts, wasn't inflating properly, and it also fast enough, sorry, and it also wasn't deflating fast enough. So after changing the battery, that's completely gone. The all-terrain control module fault, gone. All the faults basically gone. I used the spray to clean the EGR valve. I've arrived at the storage and it seems there's a lot of shit going on here. HGV's trying to get out. Okay. HGV's blocking my access to the storage unit. Great. Right, anyway, let's carry on. So yeah, all the faults were gone. I cleaned the EGR valve using the spray and almost unbelievably it worked. My throttle response instantly better. The car drives so much better. It drives how I imagine something like this would drive near when it's new now. I also started using premium diesel in here, which I've seen the miles per gallon improve from about 19 to around 23 since cleaning that and using more premium diesel. So all the problems were gone with £150 and some time spent. That left me with one. Now, those of you who watched my first video remember me saying there was a whistle coming from under the bonnet. Well, that went as soon as I cleaned the EGR valve and the turbo system. That went. And also, the other problem I said was this tyre here, the offside front tyre, was hitting the wheel arch when I was going around roundabouts. Now, my theory there was that the tyre's too big for the car, which it is. This car should have, on 20-inch rims, it should have 275 by 40 tyres, and it has 255 by 50 or 55, I believe, on here. But my problem there is that Pirelli Scorpions, all four of them, and they all have 5mm tread. So they're good tyres, and they've got a lot of life left in them. So I was a bit hesitant. So my theory there, because I heard a bit of knocking coming from behind me here driving, not knocking, it was almost like a kind of bearing noise, but I know the bearings are fine because it had an MOT literally the month I bought it, and that's checked on the MOT. So I figure, well, that must be wheel alignments, because I saw in the paperwork that they had to unseize the rear control arms, and they've replaced both front lower control arms. And I've had a previous BMW where my alignment was completely off once the lower control arm was replaced. So I thought, okay, I'm going to take it to one of my local tyre places and get them to look at that. That cost me £85. Now, I was right. All four were badly misaligned, and surprise, surprise, the worst one was this one underneath me here and back right. They really struggled with unseizing the bolts on the back right. So if I overlay the alignment they've done, it's not that great. But they did the best they could. I saw them, I was there, I watched them, they did the best they could. And most importantly, the issue of the tyre hitting the wheel arch, it's gone. So I've fixed the alignment and that issue is now gone, even though it's got much fatter tyres on here than it should. Now, if I try and sling the car around the roundabout, it will still touch the arches. But if I just go around it at normal speeds, even fairly quickly, problem's now gone. So that's it. All the issues I had after the first month and after really driving this car, all the issues that made themselves known are repaired. So I think I'm going to put the real figures, 150 plus 85. So that's under £300 that for all the issues, and I did it all myself. So I know these cars have a bad rep, all Range Rovers have a bad rep for reliability and for how expensive they are to fix. And I think maybe I've just gotten lucky with the issues I inherited. And I expect more. It's a 17-year-old car. You name me a 17-year-old car that you can buy that something's not going to be off with. You name me one. Now, the problem is they're going to be cheaper to fix, but this is still a Land Rover. It does still require Land Rover parts. And the parts actually for this car is quite cheap because they're quite popular and you can get them anywhere. It's the labour that the price comes from. So if you can do a bit of work yourself, you can keep that down. So I'm lucky, and I do expect more things to go wrong, but the car for now, I'm enjoying it. It's driving great, and yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic driving experience now. So that was all the issues I had, guys, and that's how I replaced it. Now, hopefully you guys found it interesting. I want to say one thing, that if anyone is out there, I said in my last video, if you want to get one of these, do your research, go for it, don't be scared. If you are slightly mechanically inclined, I would encourage you to do your research and do as much as you can. There are some official Land Rover manuals you can get for this and the L320 that show you how things should be removed. Oh, I don't know if you guys have noticed, I've updated the interior door trim cards here from leather to wood. I just preferred that look. And to do that, you have to remove the door panels. Yeah, typical Land Rover, to replace a bit of trim, you've got to remove all the door panels and remove all the connections on the inside, which I've got a copy of the official manual from the workshop. It's, once you have something like that, it's quite easy to do. So I've managed to do that, and I would recommend, if you're going to pick one of these up and you are slightly mechanically inclined or know someone that is, maybe make use of them. If you can't do the things yourself, maybe find someone you know who can, and you're going to save yourself a lot of money and labour that way. But thanks for watching, guys. Hope you guys found this informative. If you did, please like and subscribe. And before I go, I've booked this in now for a health check. We are just before Christmas, so in January after Christmas I've booked a health check at the main Land Rover dealer just to see what they find. I have no intention of getting them to work on this car, but it would be good for me to know if there are any issues that I've missed or that are underlying. So I'll probably do a video on that sometime. If there's anything you guys want to know, please ask. And till the next video, take care, guys. Bye bye.